There is a sign-up sheet at your sites. Please sign that and send it back to me right away. You don't have to fax or anything, but just stick it in your inter-office mail. When I get them 3-4 months later, it's kind of hard because I already usually have the certificates printed, and certificates are probably going to be delayed for a while because of some new changes. Also, make sure you mute your site when you're not talking, because it will cause an echo and stuff like that. And when you do talk, unmute it. Say your site name and then your name and the question, because it does take 30-40 seconds for it to change the video. I'm going to go through some introduction and process, and we're going to talk about doing a pre-employment, not pre-employment, but pre-plan assessments. Today, part of Liz Fabiano's initiative we've been working on. And during the past few months, we've discussed with VR counselors and other personnel the importance to elevate the professional status of the VR counselor. And much of this discussions had led to recommendations on emphasizing counseling services, counseling strategies, and ways to improve the counselor and the counselor's counseling skills. All the VR counselors by now should have completed the Liz Fabiano training, where we have provided a number of counseling tools and strategies for staff. And implementing of these tools and strategies, we feel need to become part of the VR process that you are working with our clientele. It was like 3 weeks ago, I was probably at an office, one of the Department of Labor managers asked me, what does your VR counselors do? Because they deal with the providers and seem to have more involvement with the providers. This is the WIA staff. And I had to explain to them the role of VR counseling that they do. And they're counseling individuals with disabilities who are not sure if they can or want or capable of returning to work and that employment aspects. But if we want others to see the value of our service, we need to be able to emphasize on that VR counseling component we do. We've had a work group established to help with implementation of the motivational tools and strategies. And I want to thank these individuals. They are Eric Weiss, Cindy Stewart, Melanie Votel, Doris Lamb, Kim Holberg, Margie Helgeson, Randy Christensen, Sylvia Lazada, Sherry Gary, Rhonda Williams, Gary Friends, and Jennifer Treadhill. I hope I didn't forget anyone out of that group. I want to thank them for their work and assistance on this. And it has been, since our last training we had, was it in September we had Liz Fabiano? We've been doing a work group with her ever since. And we do plan on bringing Liz back through additional training, whether it is video conference or whether it is in person. And matter of fact, our February 25th video conference, Liz will be on the video conference with us. Want to let everyone know right now, in the past we used to typically put on the screen the slides or handouts, but for some reason about 4 or 6 weeks ago, something with the DDN is stopping it from other sites showing it. I mean, we can see it here in our site if I put something on the screen, but out there it's just a black screen for everyone else. And the DDN people are working on that. So we did send out the handouts ahead of time, and we'll refer to them as we go through that. The initiative we're dealing with has been discussed at your local office as well as being discussed in the supervisors meeting. We do appreciate you guys' cooperation and the work group, and also as your counselors in implementing this. It is a significant change for many of us how we have operated and how we work with individuals and providing that guidance and counseling and part of assessing their stage of change and the tools and strategies that Liz Fabiano has provided with us. I assume I speak for SPVI too, that you guys are planning to move forward with assessments, that the pre-assessments and the post-assessments. And there are two different assessments that are being provided. And we're going to go through the pre-assessment today. And this is for people who are it's ineligible status but have not gone into a plan yet. And this will be part of their comprehensive assessment to determine and assess that person's stage of change. The post-plan assessment is going to be for those group of individuals that currently in plan and are not closed or employed. And so we'll be talking about that in February. And we are going to implement this in stages, and also to accompany it with training sessions available, because the first parts are going to be the assessments, and then we're either going to, like I said, bring Liz Fabiano back for some hands-on training with the strategies, or take those like decisional balance and just do that over a video conference with her. She is very knowledgeable of it, and to explain it much more easier than the rest of us can onto there. If there are some staff who were not able to see the video conference today, we are recording it. If you need it right away, it is getting recorded to where we can download the file. We can tell people where the file is at. We're going to try to get it put on the internet. But when you're relying on BIT, sometimes there's a delay there. So, today we're going to be discussing a pre-plan assessment that is completed for the clients who, like I said, are currently in ineligible status and have not yet developed the IPE. The assessment has just 5 questions in assessing the client's stage of change. And that's what this is. It's going to assess where is that person at in the stage of change. The first 2 questions can be determined from reviewing the client's case files. And the remaining 3 questions can be answered from meeting the individual, or if the case notes are well documented, that you can gather that information from those case notes. We do have some practice scenario cases that I sent out. There's 5 of them. We're not going to go through all 5 of them today, but what we're going to do is we're going to take a case, and then we're going to just mute the system for a while, and everyone is individually going to review that case and evaluate that person and put the scores onto that individual, and then we're going to come back together and have a group discussion, and either myself or the counselor who had that case will go through and read through those questions onto there. A few tips I do want to address before we start doing evaluations and the practice evaluations is it's really important to read the questions thoroughly. We had a video conference call here a few weeks ago with Liz, and one of the things I noticed and many other people is we would, you had to rate the person category A, B, or C, and I would read that first question or first sentence, and I would stop right with that one, and where you need to read the other sentences in that description, because the first one may not meet it, but the other ones may describe it, because it's giving a variety of demographics of that person, or a variety of the person to consider when you are evaluating it. Also important when you I have question number 2 has a rating scale, but I think question number 3 has a rating scale. It's important that when you do question number 3 that you refer to the rating scale underneath of it, that 0 to 10, and help it answer that. Because I do want to ask people, how did you rate that person based upon that rating scale of employability onto there. And again, that was one of the problems I had, is I was just jumping into parts of it and wasn't reading the question thoroughly. I think one of the things we also need to remember, and I see this a lot with the business assessment scale, is we tend to, if in doubt, rate them more positively. And I think when we are assessing individuals on these pre or these post-plan assessments, we probably need to not to be overrating the person, need to be more critical of the evaluation, because if we don't know the information, rate that person lower. Because honestly, I see some of the business assessment scales come in, and this isn't how I would rate that person that high, but it's already been rated that high, and it's hard to go back onto it. So, and that's why it's always good to have a second person to rate those. And that's why we're going through these assessments today, first individually and then as a group, so that you can see how you're rating and have a better understanding of those questions. I'm going to kind of review through these 5 questions before we go into a practice case, and also the form itself. We were able to get both assessments on a 4-page document, and I've sent the recent ones out there. And we did put the client name on there and also completed by and the date, because that's one of the things that we found with some of our tools or forms we use out there. We can't tell when it was done or who completed it, especially like that learning disability one, for example. So I'm going to kind of go through these questions. Again, the pre-plan assessments for individuals that are part of your comprehensive assessment. You're going to assess that person's stage of change where they're at. And eventually, you're going to get good at this, where you're going to know their stage of change just by meeting them without going through a form. But I think for the purposes from now, we're going to have to rely and complete on that assessment as part of our documentation. It's just 5 questions. I don't think it'd be too comprehensive to complete. So the first one is, based upon the information you have gathered from the file or from interactions with the client thus far, how long has it been since individual's been employed, full or part-time, that was regular ongoing? So if there's a lot of month here, month there, getting fired, that's not regular ongoing employment. So you need to rate it A, B, or C, whether it's more than a year, 6 months to a year, or less than 6 months. And then question 2, and I'm not going to read all the A, B, and C's, but I am going to read the question. And when you do assess individuals, I do ask you to really kind of go through those, and does this person fit in B but not A, and really read all those sentences and statements into there, because there are multiple sentences there. So number 2 is, when you look at the client's life situation, take into consideration their living situation, who they live with, where they live, the conditions they find themselves in, their adjustment and their disabilities, their obstacles, their coping abilities, significant other life issues. And I consider these their crises that many people are coming to us with, that they are having a lot of times because of the living situation or whatever. So you need to rate that person A, B, C based upon the descriptions that are there. Question number 3. With all the information you have gathered, combined from your experience working with others as a voc rehab counselor, and having met with a client and either determine eligibility or about to determine eligibility, which of the following would best describe your client's employability? And you would need to rate it 0. You need, on that 0 to 10 scale, you would need to rate that into there. And the score you would give them also should relate to the statements of A, B, or C into there. So it's important to use that rating scale on underneath of that question. Also onto this, I think you really need to look at when sometimes people are saying the words they want to work, but where are they realistically at getting employment? They haven't worked for 10 years, and they're pretty prescriptive on what they want to work and the salary range and all those other conditions they do put on there too. Do keep that in mind. Question number 4. In your discussions and meetings with the client, which of the one best describes your client? And these questions are more of their awareness of their problems and their impairments that they're having. So again, read through all 3 of those to best determine which of the categories they fit into. And number 5, your interactions and meetings with the client up to this point can be best described as. and this is your involvement with the person, if they're demanding, if they're coming in for the gas coupons, car repairs, services, but not always employment, and we've seen some of these individuals that, their neighbor got a computer, they want one, or the gas coupons, or the car repair, those service items and employment never quite materialize. So you need to rate those items onto there and those 5 questions, and basically, those are established as values where any of the A's are 5 points, any of the B's are 3, and any of the C's are a score of a 1. And I did send out to everyone to help, because you don't need to, for the practice situations we're doing today, you don't need to go through multiple copies of this pre-assessment. Just you could write down your answer on a worksheet, and I did put a little column here of what is your answer, and then I put what's the team answer, and I put the 5 ability for the 5 cases to go in there. It's not that we're going to do all 5 today. We'll see how it progresses. So I guess before we turn it over to a case, I'd like just to ask the work group if you guys had any comments.
Your idea here is that each site is kind of a team.
No, I tell you what, I would like to each individual do their score. I want everyone independently to read through the scenario that you give in each case,
yes,
and then individually put your answer A, B, or whatever on this worksheet.
And then do we get together as a site and come up with a consensus?
Or what we're going to do is I'm going to ask one person or a couple people to read through their answer.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go through the answer that I came up with and then be our counselor. And some of those answers are the ones that we did in those practice ones that one day. I got a couple new ones into here. But so some of those that we came up with when we had Liz Fabiano on there.
Okay.
So, anyone else in the work group have any questions? Because again, what Eric was asking, we're going to have Eric. I'm going to give you one of the cases, and we're going to do case number 2. That's Sylvia Lozada's case. I'm picking 3 of them to start with, and there's some that are kind of similar. So I just chose one of those for various reasons. And case number 2 is Sylvia Lozada's, and that's the one we're going to start with today. And if there's any questions that you may have on this, you can feel free to ask Sylvia about this person. The names have been just the first name sometimes or the initial. So, does any of the work group have any questions or anyone out there before we do proceed? The Rapid City screen is just frozen in motion there. So I assume someone else is on the other end. Carmen, do you understand?
Yep, I sure do.
Okay. We're going to give it 10 minutes maybe. We'll try there. If people start getting done earlier, just let us know. I'm going to mute the system. And I want you to take about 10 minutes. Read scenario number 2 or case number 2. I'm not sure what I call it in sample number 2 is probably what I call it. And it's the one of Sylvia Lozada's case. And I want you guys to read through that. And I want you to write in your answer on the worksheet. And we'll get back together in 10 minutes. Just a couple more minutes, and then we'll start going through the responses. Okay, do we have a volunteer from someone that wants to go through their answers?
I'll take it on. This is Marion Spearfish.
Okay, Mary. Question number A, let me get my deal here, deals with the length of unemployment. What did you put for an answer there?
Well,
Or question number 1.
number one, yeah, I put
Yeah.
pretty much never because it's only been very sporadic and 2 months at a time. So I put that as A.
Okay. Question number 2, when you look at that person's life situation, how did you score that person? A, B, or C? And I should give a person that got a name. It's called Jane.
Let's see. I also gave Jane an A for number 2. Her life's been somewhat, pretty much chaotic and unstable. 2 months at 3 different jobs, I think it was, is pretty sporadic and doesn't have much of a work history, has been on drugs, her medications aren't working, she doesn't want to go to therapy, so she's got a lot of things going on, I felt. I gave her an A.
Living with the father-in-law, or living with the boyfriend who was living with the father-in-law, and
Right.
also considering starting meth again.
That's right.
Okay. How about question number 3? And I'd like to hear from you before you say A, B, or C. How did you score the person on the bottom on that 10-point scale?
I gave Jane a 1. Let's see. Okay. And an A. The client has unrealistic expectations as to what they can do and what is possible. It just seemed like, I don't know, she was in there wanting some things. Clothes and gas, that's what they gave her in Iowa. But she hasn't really thought about what she wants to do or how she's going to go about doing it. It hasn't taken any steps on her own. So I think it's going to be difficult to find her employment.
Okay. Question number 4. How'd you rate that?
I gave Jane a B there because I think she does know that a problem exists and that her and her boyfriend need to have employment in order to have money and stop living with his father. And I'm kind of between an A and a B, but I did go with the B because I think she does have some realization that she needs help and has to do something.
Okay. I'm going to have you read through the last one, and then I may ask Sylvia for any comments she may have, or some of the work group, and then what mine were. So, question number 5.
Okay, for 5, I also gave her an A. She wanted to kind of control the session. She was right out there with what she needed, gas and clothes, I think it was. Yeah. And I'm kind of between an A and a B, but I did go with the B because I think she does have some realization that she needs help and has to do something. Okay. Let's see, what else does it say? And she doesn't think that, like going to a counselor is a good idea because that doesn't work for her. There's resistance there, I believed, so I gave her an A.
Okay. And then how this is scored, every A is a 5, the B is a 3, and Mary had 4 5s, 4 A's, and B, so that score of 23 is probably what you had on there, Mary.
Yep.
The only, you did very good on that. The only difference I had on that score was I had A's in all of them. But Sylvia, are you there? How did you score?
Yep, I actually had the same exact score as Mary did on the same questions. And I can see, Bernie, where you got an A on number 4, because I was kind of wavering between A or B on that one, but I think I went with a B on it just because she did mention what she wanted changed, and I was glad that even though she was at least honest with the fact that she was thinking about starting meth again. I mean, in some ways, I think she considered that to be an issue when she brought it up and she was concerned about it. So that's where I went with B. But yeah, all of my scores were the same as Mary's.
Yeah. And one thing I'll point out, whether you had a B or an A on that, is still going to fall in the same category of pre-contemplation. Even if a person scored a couple of those B's, you're still going to fall in the pre-contemplation range. I hope no one was putting a C to any of those items onto there. And it's not really surprising this person was an unsuccessful case in Iowa where she also got closing gas money. I'm not saying this is a lot of people come to us, but it's a familiar type of case where someone's coming and it's wanting to service their life's in a crisis situation, living with the boyfriend who's living with the father, and but I think it's important to assess this person where they're at, and they're falling at a pre-contemplation stage area right now. And it does, on the 4th page, does go through these techniques. And I'm not the person, the expert in helping going through these strategies, and that's where we're going to involve Liz Fabiano a little bit more into on helping do the decisional balance, how to raise the doubt with the individual, to explore the values, behaviors, to create problem awareness. Those are all strategies we're going to be working with Liz more and how to do those counseling techniques into there. At this point in time today, I'm wanting people to kind of go through and understand this assessment tool and assess their clients and start, understanding these questions onto there. So this is a pretty good case. I assume everyone's thought the person fell in that pre-contemplation should have had a range of 19 to 25 into there. Does that sound pretty well what you guys are having into there? Okay. I'd like to do a different case if we're ready to move on. If someone has a question out there onto this, you need to let us know. Otherwise, we'll just keep moving forward with this. I do want to get through 3 cases today, possibly a 4th if all possible into there. I'd like you to do sample number 4, case number 4, and that's Jennifer Trenhill's case. And I'd like to give you about, I think 10 minutes is about the right amount of time, again, to read through this case scenario, to give it a score, and then I'll call on someone again to go through how they rated the person, and then ask Jennifer how she rated Eugene. So our clock is showing 2:42, so at about 2:52 we'll get back on. Okay, we're going to discuss this group. Do I have a volunteer to go through their responses?
Yeah, Bernie, I'll do this one. Steve here
Okay.
in Chamberlain.
Okay.
First, I wanted to ask Jennifer if she'd send this guy down to me. It's like, I could use a case like that. Anyway, I went C with number 1. And, he's just out of work since, what was it, September, so here we are in January, so it's not very long.
Well, and the other thing is, Steve, is I think you need to look at from the date that they are coming and applying to. Because eventually we may be looking at this as a practice case a year from now, and it should be more of, when the person applied in October, they lost their job in September. So even if it was Jennifer met with them first time into November or December, it would probably still fit in that C category. Okay?
Yeah. Then for number 2, I had C as well because he's got a pretty solid work history there with those two long periods. So 92 to 2006, and then 07 to 2012, and then laid off was the reason that he was unemployed. So that's pretty good work history.
I got a question for Eric or the other group. Is there a word cut off on number C where it says have a work history per SE? What is
Per se.
Per se.
Oh, okay. I know we're doing a lot of changes and modifications to the form. I thought we had something cut off. So. Okay. How did you rate the question number 3?
3, I went with C on 3, and the fact that he came in and brought the estimate for his prosthesis in with him. On one side of the coin, you could say that he's wanting something, but on the other side of the coin, he's he contacted the employer and he brought in the estimate for the prosthesis, and he's doing all the homework that he needs to do. He's pretty motivated, so I wouldn't give anybody a 10, but at least an 8 there, maybe a 9. Being on disability may keep me away from the 9, but probably a 9 I'd give him.
Okay. We were having a discussion here earlier on, and I'm going to probably ask Liz Fabiano just for clarification. I think A is supposed to be 2 and less. B is 4, 5, or 6. And C is 8 and above. It does leave a gap in some numbers of 3 and 7. But those kind of like sit in the middle. I think you need to choose which direction you're going to go. But I think we just need to clarify is because less than 2 could be 1 and 0. And but I'm almost certain it's probably 2 and less. So I'll double check on that. But you scored this person an 8, which puts him in the C, right, Steve?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Number 4, how'd you rate it?
4, I've got a C as well because I didn't hear any negative statements. I didn't see any negative statements in there. The guy comes in, he wants to get back to work. It appears to me that he's ready to go, and the counselor suggested that he contact that employer, which was 3 blocks away. He did it. They've got a dialogue going, and the employer is even willing to work with him by now. So he shared his needs, which are an accommodation until the prosthesis is available, and that's being resolved. So I gave him a C.
Okay, and fifth question.
Let's see here. Fifth question. Yeah, I gave him C here. He attended appointments. The services are clear out front. He hasn't asked for anything extra. Services are well defined, and I'd write up an IPE with this guy immediately to get things rolling. The sooner he gets his prosthesis, then he'll be good to go. So C.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Jennifer, would you like to respond to Steve's ratings?
Nope, that's exactly what I had, so.
Yeah, I think you shared the answers with Steve. That's why you probably know. Yeah, Jennifer told me her answers ahead of time too, and I went through and I kind of agree that had C's in all of them, which gives it a 1, or ones that gives it a 5, which kind of puts it in that, it's in the preparation stage is where it's going to put that person. And like Steve said, it's to, you can't proceed with a plan there. I think one thing on this type of case is not, some people may say, well, we're doing just prosthesis. I think there's a lot of other opportunities for some VR services of some job site accommodations, some consulting with the employer and such as, and to assure that successful employment. But yeah, this was a case here I think we'd all like to have, and ready to go into plan and stuff. So, okay.
The question number 2 we were talking about a little bit here.
Okay.
It seemed like, and I chose C for number 2, but he didn't really fit neatly into any of those. I guess if you consider the surgery that was within the past years since the client's, if that's the client's injury or disability, maybe you can view it as that, and the person fits better into C. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Jennifer, can you tell us what kind of work, or did it say what type of work he was going to go into?
The job that he got,
Yeah.
or that he took, it is working at a liquor store as a cashier.
Okay. And what was he doing before? Was that a factory production worker and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
production work.
And depending on.
Well,
That's how I
Yeah,
looked at it, is that he's had a disability for a long time, but recently had new issues. So that's why
Yeah.
I looked at it as it's been within a year.
I felt that he fit best into C there, but I wouldn't be surprised if anyone struggled trying to find where he fits the best.
Yeah. If you did a B, it may move that person right into that contemplation a little bit into there. I think if you did spend some, I wouldn't delay things too much, but start spending the meeting with him to explore some other areas, I think you still could have moved him into it. It doesn't hurt to go through the decisional balance and stuff on a person. If in doubt, go through those strategies and stuff. But I think most people were probably putting 1s for all of those into there. I don't know what you guys had.
The lowest score they can give is a 5.
Yeah.
And if you get 1B on there, then that puts them at a 7, which is very close.
Yeah. So, anyone else have questions on that case? Okay. We're going to do case number 5. We're jumping around a little bit here. I'm trying to get a variety in first, and then we may go back to 1 or 2 of the other ones. Case number 5 is from Melanie Botel, and I should say sample number 5, and about a 50-year-old woman on SSDI benefits. And so I'd like to give everyone probably 10 minutes, so about 10 after 3, we'll see where people are at, and go with the volunteer to go through their scores at that point in time. So go ahead and read sample number 5 and evaluate that person. guys ready? Can we have a volunteer out there? Other than Melanie? How about someone in Aberdeen?
Train the trainer.
Okay, this is Kim. I'll volunteer. For number 1, I picked A. For number 2, I picked B. This one was kind of a toss-up in the office here. Question number 2 was. Anyway, number 3, for B, I selected B.
What did you have for on the sliding scale there? What did you have for a number on the sliding scale?
I selected 5 for her. You know,
Okay.
the reason why was a lot of it comes down to is she's afraid of the weather. You know, she's very contemplative about that. She thinks she's got the skills, but the weather is her major concern. Number
Yeah, I brought up a point there. In that level, she's willing to go out for physical therapy 3 times a week, but doesn't want to leave the house for work.
Yeah, let's discuss number 3 here for a minute too. You know, because I hear some of these people that they want to work with. Is it realistic? A lot of them come out. They want to work with animals, kids, or work in your home, set your own schedule. This woman wasn't saying I want to set my own schedule. That's why I want my own self-employment or home. Because it typically isn't like that. And there's not a lot of those at-home, on your schedule jobs. And she was talking about her computer skills were not that good. But, you know, Steve's does have a point here that, you know, she is go out. She does do the physical therapy 3 times a week. I think she's volunteering at the church and stuff like that, too. I mean, so she is getting out for those purposes onto there. Maybe she can set her schedule on doing those things if it is icy or snowing out, whatever. I don't know, but I rated pretty close in there too. A 6. That's what I had. A 5 or a 6. I did put that person as a B, but
I had an A to begin with and changed it to a B.
did ya?
Because I think it's pretty close to. I mean, I think you could say they're unrealistic expectations, but at the same time, you know, they lack the person lacks confidence that they can travel around. But you know,
But she does also talk about will be somewhat willing to community employment. I think I've seen that in her too. Am I correct or not?
Yeah, she did.
Would consider it, but her preference would be at home or self-employment.
Yeah.
You know, so okay, go ahead, Kim.
Bernie, this is Marjorie. The other one that I considered on that is she's her primary concern about changing is related to her mental health and worries about increasing depression due to lack of social contact and lower self-esteem. So there's some, you know, she's kind of a I want to, but on a couple points like that.
Yeah. Okay. Kim, I'll have you continue on with your last 2 responses.
Number 4, I also selected B, and again, the reason was, you know, going back to, you know, but just kind of at that inner struggle. Number 5, I also selected B. My overall score was 17.
Okay. Melanie? I think you had your last 2 are a little different than Kim's.
Yeah, my number 3 through 5 are, actually.
Okay. Oh, okay. I wrote your scores down. And probably sometimes I've seen with counselors work with a person, they tend to rate their person a little better than people who've never seen them. I don't know, but because I seen this on a practice case we did a couple weeks ago. The counselor who had the case rated it a little positive more than everyone else. But I kind of also had B for number 3, and I guess I kind of wrote your answers down for 4 and 5. But what did everyone else have for 4 and 5?
I had B and I had C for number 5.
Okay, Melanie had C for number 5, and she had C for number 4 and 5. So still, it kind of puts that person in that same category into there, I believe. 13 to 17 puts them in that middle category.
15.
What's that? You had 15 into there. I think Melanie had maybe 13 on her score. In that contemplation stage into there. Let's hear from other people. How did they rate those? I think that the questions are more subjective on the last 3 questions. Did anyone else score the third question different than a B?
I initially did a 1, but I changed it to a 3 after. I mean, I agreed with a lot of things people were saying.
Yeah.
I don't know why it didn't occur to me, yeah, she is going out 3 times a week doing all this stuff, but she wants to do stay-at-home work because she doesn't want to go out when she's doing that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good point.
Melanie, a little bit about, is there a physical disability that's causing, it's just simply the mental illness that her fear of going out, isn't it?
No, she's had several back surgeries.
Okay.
And even just last fall, in between my first and second meeting with her, had another surgery with some screws placed in her spine. And in fact, actually this morning, she fell on the ice. I mean, it is a legitimate concern for her with that, and wasn't able to go to the Rehab Center for Employment Skills Training today because of that. But otherwise, I mean, she really is working hard at trying to get out with the church and with physical therapy and going and working out at the wellness center, coming to meetings with me, trying not to let those things keep her back. So yeah, I mean, she's caught in kind of a, I want to, but I'm not sure quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the fact that her home is elevated from the street, she has to walk down 15 steps just to get to her car.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see where she'd be concerned about an injury walking down those steps, but she's been doing it.
3 times a week.
Daily.
3 times a week for physical
Yeah.
therapy, and how many times a week for church?
Mm-hmm.
But
But it is a real concern. But what do you do? Move.
And I know
I
I'm
think too
getting that one,
that
but
sorry. I
I'm
think too,
hearing an echo of
if it's
myself.
volunteering and things like that, it's easier to stay at home when the weather is bad than if you're going to work. You're expected to be there. I think there's a different mental.
yeah, your employer's going to have the expectations that these are the days of the week to attend, and unless someone's seeing some really great at-home work businesses stuff. I mean, we've had some in the past that always didn't pan out, and help them are pretty high skill level situations. And so, it'd be nice if there was this great pool of at-home situations. But I think if a person had more of a skill set on with them, where they've done the medical transcription services or something like that before, that they'd have some connections and have that skill ready to go. I don't know if that's the case with this. So, but either way, it kind of fell within that 13 to 15 to 17 range, which still falls in that contemplation into there. So I wanted to pick a case that kind of fell in that category there. So we're going to do one more. And I kind of want to make sure I got to those 3 first, that, each fell into a different category, that we weren't kind of evaluating the same type of scenario with a different name. I'd like just to do case number 3, and that's Kim Holberg case. And on Eddie. And again, I think we can probably a little less than 10 minutes, and then have someone read through their score. So I'll unmute it and give people about 8 minutes or so.
Bernie?
Yep.
Bernie, this is Mary in Spearfish. I was wondering if I could ask Kim Holberg a question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what this guy wants and why he stopped in South Dakota.
We were just wondering the same thing.
I think that's a very common question. Mary, to kind of answer your question, he basically wants us to provide him with gaining the skills to become a pipeline welder. Initially, he came to me saying, I want to go to this prestigious welding school called Hobart University that's located in Ohio. So I kind of steered him away from that, and I currently want to assess or evaluate where his welding skills lie. And then as far as him coming here to South Dakota, apparently he has a friend that lives in a very rural town, and apparently there were no jobs available in California.
You know, I really agree with doing a bunch of assessments because it's really hard to score this guy. I mean, he hasn't worked for so long, and he's obviously a little bit manic probably right now with no medication and talking a lot. I don't know, it's hard to say.
Yeah,
It's a tough case.
Exactly.
Tough case.
Yeah.
That's why before I commit to an employment goal, I want to currently assess where he's at.
Right.
But they don't know.
It's written in there, but
Well,
Yeah.
What did Steve say? What did Steve say?
He really want to know? You don't want to know. Does anybody have
Okay,
any?
forget it.
He was saying that everybody's probably wondering what New Tech is, but I kind of have a general description in my summary.
I think we'll probably have someone volunteer if people are ready. I don't know if we had our 10 minutes, but this was a case that we did go through with Liz Fabiano. Some of the other ones were afterwards I had in there because I found the first two cases were way too similar. So that's why I only picked one of the two. And then I asked for a couple different samples, but Kim's case number 3 was one that we went through with Liz Fabiano. So, and had some discussions, interesting discussions on this one here. So if I can get a volunteer to go through how they rated the person, and then we'll discuss those scores. Other than Kim Holberg, Aberdeen office. You got a volunteer? Marge, you got someone in Rapid City that would like to read through their score?
Yeah, I sure do. I'd pick on Lana, but she's turning red already.
I'll do it. What the heck?
Marilee will do it.
Okay. Is everyone ready out there? Okay, I had, number 1, I had A. And number 2, I had C. Number 3, I had B. No, I had A on number 3. 4 and 5, I had B on both of those. It's a little hard for me to figure out some of the stuff.
Okay. Kim, you want to respond to how your answers were? And I think you gave the answer that response that you did when we did our group, and I think our group had a little bit lower score than, a little more critical a score, best way to say it. So what was your scores, Kim Holberg?
he's manic.
Okay, my overall score was 19, or what's that?
You have in each one. What did you have
What did
for
you have on each
each
one?
question?
There's 17 total.
What was that, Bernie?
Yeah, could you give us your score for each of the 5 questions?
Yep. Sorry, it had cut out. Okay, for number 1, I chose A. For number 2, I also chose A. For number 3, 4, and 5, I chose B for all of those.
Okay. I sent this back to these scenarios back to people, and where they probably changed some wording or stuff. Did you originally have in the sample we had a few weeks ago discussed this case that they wanted that out-of-state school, and that was taken out, or was that discussed in just conversation? I can't remember.
This was the same one.
No, did you have it in your first case?
Oh, do I have it in my first case, my score?
No, when you
No.
first wrote that summary up, did you have it in there?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, maybe it
I
just
did.
came up in this came up discussion, because I know we had the discussion where he wanted to go to the out-of-state school, wanted to go to a very elite welding school. Discussing I think most people are probably coming up with an A for number 1. There's some discrepancy in the second question of a person's life situation where, Kim, you had the person rated an A, and someone else scored it a C, and I'm trying to think. Mary Lee, did you give it a C is what you did? Yeah, what did you guys come up with for number 2? A B? You had a C into there? And an A. I think that second question had the most range into there. And I think we were having a discussion of what brings a person from California to South Dakota. We were also having a discussion on a person still on SSI and had a landscaping business for 10 years. That must not have been very successful if you're still on SSI. So I don't know if everything the person was giving us was quite correct in information onto there. But I think number 2. Number 3, there was an A and a B. Lee, how did you score it on that scale for number 3?
I had B.
You gave it an A, didn't you?
No, she gave it a B.
I gave
she
it
did.
a B,
Okay.
but then after I heard about him wanting to go to another welding place, I thought maybe an A would be better, a little more unrealistic expectations. So maybe A would fit better on the number 3.
Okay.
I don't have that information before.
Bernie, this is staying out in Rapid.
Yeah.
I gave him an A for 3 because the guy's primary diagnosis is bipolar. Welding on a pipeline, even though he's got certification, if he's not taking medications and stuff, based on what I know, the stress and the depression because of the work, I see it as possibly unrealistic. Because, to give you an example, when they did the Alaskan pipeline back in the 70s, the guy that made the very first weld got $10,000. Now, this gentleman here has limited work experience, limited experience. He wants to go to an elite school, but because of the environmental protection requirements, the stress is going to be too much for him, so I gave him 5.
50-year-old ain't going to be able to.
Yeah. We had some discussion here of a similar nature, Stan. I don't know if any one of you have placed clients in North Dakota. You know, people hear about the big bucks you make in North Dakota, but and some literally get up there and move up to North Dakota and find out the rest of the story. But it's not a 40-hour a week, 8 to 5, and some of it can be very physical demanding, and it is long weeks. And secondly, a lot of those companies are doing some criminal background checks, and you got to have the certifications, and I mean, there's much more to it than that situation onto there. Like I said, I don't know if any of you've had any people placed in North Dakota on those situations, but it just, we've talked to our counterparts up there, and they tell us the horror stories of people are just flooding up there with the understanding that there's a gold rush, and the big bucks are there, and you get up there and there's no housing, no living situation. If you get a job, and sometimes even if you were a truck driver, you've got to wait months to get the background check done, and your CDL has got to clear, and if you've got any driving issues onto there, I mean, there's just a whole bunch more that involves that people aren't always aware of it onto there. So,
Bernie, this is Marion Spearfish, and I think that's really a good point. And also, this guy he had his own business, so he's never worked with other men, and he'd be working close with other people, living in a man camp. There's a lot of crime. I think it sounds a little unrealistic until it's assessed further, I think. I think Melanie's gal had a much better chance of going to work than this dude.
Yeah, and I just, the person is definitely into, I'm not sure, Kim, you had a score of 19, or I think most people may have ended up having a score higher than the 19, but it's in that pre-contemplation stage into there. So if you varied some onto there, there is the strategies, the seeds of doubt, the decisional balance strategies that a person should be looking onto there. But the only thing I know, Kim, I think you're talking about in the case of you are having a person assessed for their welding, which is probably good, but sometimes realize when you do have them assessed, a lot of these instructors will say, yeah, you can do this. And it's not always, they want someone in their program too. And, is a person going to be committed to the length of training it's going to involve and stuff. So, and it's hard to deny the situation once you already assessed them. So, I don't know what anyone else had a thought on this case or not, but this fell in that pre-contemplation. It wasn't quite as clear-cut as that first one, as Sylvia's case. Margie's case was one we didn't read. If you read that, you'll fall into an A for every one of those two, probably. But this one had some discussional areas onto there. I think some of it was, I'm not sure if information the person was presenting was all there and stuff, such as a person still in SSI and had a business for 10 years, and the only reason he left it because the tools got stolen. I'm not sure what his landscaping tools were, a rake and a shovel. So, I think there's more there than what meets the eye. So, when we had our conference call, video conference a few weeks ago with Liz Fabiano, we just felt it was helpful to go through the practice cases like this, go through the assessments, and then we had a better understanding of it. And so even if someone did a B or a C, I mean, you still fall pretty well in that same category into there. And then the fourth page is going to give you the tools and strategies to do next. And I do want the counselors to start on their cases that are in an eligible status to start going through and doing the pre-plan assessments on your clients, and to start documenting what stage of change are they in. And feel free to start the strategies of the decisional balance, or to create that problem awareness with the individual, and start going through those strategies that Liz has talked to us about, and we've done a training. It is uncomfortable because we're not perfect at it, and we struggle through it. But the only way to learn on that is to try some of these strategies and start doing these strategies. We will be bringing Liz back in to do more in-depth training on these areas, but until we start assessing the individuals is where we need to start being at. And so I want to throw that out. I do want people to start, when they do these assessments on individuals, to put them assessments into the case file. And, case notes can start reflecting the assessment stage that they're at and also the strategies you're using, because we need to start building that into the individual's counseling and casework we're dealing with them.
Do you want us to do this with Project Skills students?
I would say cases that are in transition services. You know what? Let's try some cases in Project Skills, and let's get some feedback on that first before we decide. We are proceeding with a plan on those individuals, but really the services that are in a plan are more of career assessments. It's not like we're sending a person to college and stuff like that. It is more for the purpose of career assessment purposes. I kind of gone back and forth on the students that are in transition services, so I'd like to try some of those and get some feedback onto them first before we make a decision onto there. I really think there is a benefit of doing more than just going to the IEPs that we have with the kids. I think we need to meet individually with them and start talking to them about work and what is meaning work for them, and maybe doing decisional balance with these individuals and doing some of these strategies on them. So I know we had this discussion with Liz Fabiano, but we have a month here before we do the other assessment. And so I'd like people to do some of these assessments on Project Skills kids and then provide that feedback to us this next month. I think we may also be having a work group meeting before then that I know we're probably going to have to, and we can be discussing at that point in time too. So the post-plan assessment is more than 5 questions. It gets a little bit more complicated. That's why I wanted Liz on that call. So do some on your post-project skills, and then we'll be discussing that more. I think just make some decision on there. It doesn't hurt to do the assessments on them, I guess. So, good question though, guys. Does anyone else have any questions? We only got like 10 minutes, and we get disconnected.
Bernie, this is Doris in Aberdeen. Our only problem with trying them on Project Skills is the time of the year, because we're not assessing any clients for Project Skills to put them into a new plan right at this time.
They're already in the plan?
Yeah, they're all in plans already. In the summer, it would be more effective because that's when we bring in the new students for the following year.
Yeah. I'd like a few people to do an assessment on someone that's a recent case, even though we did a plan. It's a recent, the first plan they're in and stuff like that. Because I want to talk to the work group a little bit more about that and see what their take is on it. And I have to look at my notes too, because I know we had the discussion before, and I had some notes on dealing with those transition cases. I know at one time we were talking about not doing assessments on them as far as the post plan, because most of those in the post plan, but I can't remember what stage we were to assume that they're at. I had to look at that.
My heart dropped.
Okay, so you want us to do a couple on people that are already on an IPE?
Yeah, that's a pretty recent situation, because really the Project Skills is nothing more at this point as a career assessment to them. And then I'll see about scheduling a conference call or a video conference with our work group a couple weeks out from here.
I don't know.
Okay.
Say, Bernie, this is Margie. Oops, excuse me, Doris. This is Margie in Rapid City. Rhonda brought up a good question. Working with the BMS contract, or, what I mean, where we're supposed to like hurry up and do the eligibility and do the plan and get them going. How do you want us to handle this?
Do a couple on them.
See how it goes?
It really, and then I'm going to go back to how Liz explains this, that once you determine what stage they're at, that it is a series of 2 or 3 meetings. And I know that it's going to impact BMS, but we also are going to have to talk to providers and advocacy that we're doing this initiative, and schools. And then we need time to meet with individuals to assess this and do this counseling. I'd like to have a conference call, a video conference, a couple weeks out with a work group, because we need to come up with some scenarios. We only have a couple scenarios of post-plan cases, and I think I need a few more to deal with onto there. So let's have the work group discuss that here in a couple weeks.
Capital area may be using something similar to this already, as I've seen on some of the case notes I've got.
Oh, really?
That they have contemplation or pre-contemplation written
Really?
down on the bottom of their sheet. Yeah.
Ask them once.
So
yeah,
we got a meeting coming up with them on Monday, don't we? Thursday. So.
Thursday. Okay. I know when we did a training in Rapid City, I purposely invited the Community Transitions Program, and I believe I invited the BMS to that training when we had it in Rapid City at that time, so they'd understand the direction we were going and what we wanted to accomplish out there. But if we find out Capital Area Mental Health Center is doing something, maybe the other mental health centers are doing something also similar onto there.
Bernie, this is Gary in Watertown. The CARE program is also doing motivational interviewing too here in Watertown.
Okay.
In fact, I walked up to the desk today in their office, and it was laying right on top of the desk.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Why don't you talk to them too a little bit more, and I'll schedule Gary our work group, and Keith, if you let me know on this, we'll have a discussion in a couple of weeks with the work group onto there, because it sounds like some of these mental health centers are dealing with this too, and it's maybe something we're just going to talk with BMS a little bit more on the direction we're going.
Bernie, this is Carmen in Huron. And I believe our mental health center does that too, because on their case notes all the time I'll see that, like Keith was saying, pre-contemplation, contemplation. But that has nothing to do with when they refer them to voc rehab or not.
Yeah.
Good point.
That'd be interesting how. But the thing is, keep in mind, these stages of changes are not only for employment, they're for other aspects of a person's life too. So they may be assessing it also on the person's willingness for mental health services. So, but it would be interesting to find out more if those mental health centers are doing that. So, we're going to get cut off here. I'm not going to give an answer right now on these mental health cases or the project skills. Like I said, we'll have a conference call or video conference in a couple weeks out with our work group, because we're going to also to get together some practice cases in preparation for that. And then we need to send those to Liz ahead of time, because she'll be involved with that. So, you guys have a good day and safe travels. Hopefully you're not getting too much snow in different parts of the state. So,
I'm still frozen, Mary.
anything else? Okay, you guys have a good day then.
Thanks, sir.